After 2020 has disrupted everybody's plans, you might be thinking, what's the use of making plans and resolutions for 2021? Yet for sure, you don't want to remain stuck. So how do you plan in a time of chaos? My name is Joyce Talag. Join me in Let's Talk and Thrive. Let's Talk and Thrive is an initiative of Lead to Thrive Leadership and Management Consultancy. We activate leaders through professional coaching and workshops as a means to creating thriving communities. If you find this video useful, tap or click subscribe and the bell beside it to get notified when I upload my next video. So this year 2020 may not have turned out to be what you expected. Perhaps you're one of those who greeted the New Year screaming, "Bring it on!" with your official hashtag, only to realize by March that, wait a minute, most of my plans need to be canceled, if not postponed indefinitely. Now this experience can be quite or really traumatic. Imagine hearing all these bad news day in, day out. So if you are watching this video and you feel that you are not yet ready to talk about this, I would suggest that you leave a comment under this video so that I can consider your thoughts in my upcoming videos. Now, if you are one of those who are tuned in because you are curious, then please stay with me. Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. This is one of the nuggets of wisdom that I have recently learned, and this quote came from former US President Dwight Eisenhower, who interestingly lived in the Philippines as a senior military assistant to General Douglas MacArthur in the late 1930s, prior to his presidency. According to some references online, it was Eisenhower who drafted Commonwealth Act No. 1, which resulted in the creation of the Philippine Army. Now, take note that Eisenhower lived through 2 world wars, so this must be the context in which he made his statement. Now, fast forward to almost or more than half a century later, and we are in the midst of a pandemic. So it might not be the same, but more or less we are in the same chaotic world. What is my point for giving you this historical tidbit as a prelude to my video? Well, my answer, it is to shift your perspective and start the conversation seeing the big picture. Of course, you know that between that time and now, the world has definitely recovered and bounced back better. Now, what this tells us is that setbacks like the pandemic and your canceled plans are not permanent. Besides, strife, challenges, trials, disruptions, these are all part of our collective narrative as humans. If you and I learn to accept this, then it can be easier, though not necessarily easy, to go back to our drawing board. So again, what is meant by that quote, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable? I'd like to say that it's more about focusing on the how instead of the what. Because when we focus on the what, which is the actual plan on paper or whatever that looks like for you, then there is a tendency to become attached to it. And when things don't turn out to be exactly like how you envisioned it to be or how your plan looks like to you, then chances are you will be disappointed and it will be harder for you to adapt to the changes that are going on around you. Now, if you focus on the how, the advantage of that is you get to become aware of your strengths and build on new skills in the process. So let's start with this mindset, detaching ourselves from the idea of the end in mind, but focusing in the present or on the present, in the now. What is it that I already have and that I can build in the process of planning? Learn to be comfortable with not knowing. A year ago, I was working with clients in achieving clarity. And at that time, we had no idea that there's going to be a full-on pandemic in 2020. What I realized here is that clarity is hardly possible, especially when we depend so much on factors that we cannot control. It's terrifying. It's like walking in the dark without a flashlight and with no end in sight. It is the fear of uncertainty, of the unknown, of darkness that can be dangerous for us. Because fear can blind us further, fear can mislead us. But once we become comfortable with not knowing, then we give ourselves the chance to see from within. Fear with insight can actually tell you a lot of things, which leads us to our next point. Let your values serve as your compass. What is it that you are afraid of? Give me your knee-jerk response. If you answered you are afraid of your loved ones getting sick, then it shows that you value your relationships more than anything else. If your response is you're afraid for your employees, then it shows that you value your business. You value the people who work for you. Now, the thing is, like we talked about earlier, if we just look at fear by itself, then sometimes there is a tendency to see it in a very negative light. But if we take a look at the other side of the fear, then we're going to see a lot of information there. So what is causing that fear? What are you trying to protect at the end of the day? As you feel your way through uncertainty, knowing what you are afraid of can actually lead you to your next step, which may not necessarily be the step forward. Sometimes you may have to move around in circles, which also leads us to our next point. Acknowledge that mistakes are part of the process. How I wish that I will not be saying this, but in the last 6 to 9 months, I have been talking with thought leaders, game changers, my own clients, and even seeing things from my own experiences and in my conversations with everyday people. What I noticed is that those who seem to be thriving, or at least doing better than, let's say, their counterparts who are in the same situation, it is that these people are quite used to failing. Not like, that they are failures per se, but they accept that it is possible to make mistakes. They know that somewhere along the road they will make mistakes, and they are fine with that. One way of approaching this is to have that mindset that, okay, I'm making this decision, but I can be wrong about this. Somewhere along the way, I may make mistakes. I can have some failures. Now, if you're quite risk averse, what you can probably do is to have this question at the point of a decision. Like, what can I afford to lose? How much can I afford to lose and charge to experience? Because when you have this perspective already, then courage comes next. Make room for reflection. I like the wisdom of the late Aliyah. If at first you don't succeed, you can dust yourself off and try again. I'm laughing a little bit because I would have sang it, except that, this is not the time for singing. And besides, you might probably be switching off your YouTube after you hear me sing. Now, kidding aside, when we talk about agility, it's not just all about being that fast to stand up and, just continue walking or changing direction. Part of being agile is having that space, little space for reflection and insight. Like you made that mistake, you failed, or you fell. Now, what did you learn out of it? Where did you make mistakes? And how can you be better? Because if you don't have this space for reflection, then probably there's a big chance that you're going to make the same mistakes again. But if you have that reflection, then you know what to avoid. You know where to do better at. So part of being able to do this is to focus on the how of the planning, looking at what are the mindsets, the new attitudes, new perspectives, and of course the new skills that you are able to build as you plan and prepare for the year. Build and fortify your support system. Part of planning would be taking stock of your strengths, skills, and resources. Those who have been listening to me in my past workshops or have undergone coaching conversations with me would know that I call them the SSRs, strengths, skills, and resources. Successful people would be aware not only of their strengths and skills, or the mindsets, the attitudes that they have, and the technical, interpersonal skills that they have. They are also aware of the resources that they have at hand. And not only that, they are also humble enough to know when and where it is time to ask for help. So the value there is for you to have these resources handy so that when you make mistakes, it will not hurt as much. When you make mistakes, it will be easier for you to bounce back and better at that. In conclusion, the process of planning is an advantage by itself when done in a time that requires plans to be constantly revised. What you should remember are the following. Number 1, learn to be comfortable with not knowing. 2, let your values serve as your compass. 3, acknowledge that mistakes are part of the process. 4, make room for reflection. And number 5, finally, build and fortify your support system. I would love to support you in your planning process. To connect with me, like or follow any of my social media accounts listed under this video. And of course, tap subscribe and the little bell beside it to get notified when I post my next videos. See you again on our next Let's Talk and Thrive video.